So, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's session, which I'm happy to also do together with Thorsten again from SAP. We will be talking about the from lift and shift to integration modernization with SAP Integration Suite based on SAP ISA method. Right, so maybe Thorsten, you can maybe introduce yourself real quick for the audience. Thorsten, I think we can't hear you. Okay, no, works. Sorry. Great, thank you very much. So from my side, I'm Marvin Schreide. I'm also from IBsolution, responsible for the integration topics related to BTP in no regards or regarding business intelligence, integration suite, and all different kinds of connectivities also on SAP HANA itself. And very happy to have you here today to directly provide you an overview of what we are going to do for today's session. So maybe some of you have already been into the last session of ours, which was on Tuesday. If not, no problem, don't worry. We will also have a few repetitions of content, of course, because not everyone was probably there. If so, we also have kept this to a minimal. So the most important information you will still receive if you haven't attended. If you have attended, you still shouldn't get bored, hopefully. And therefore, this is what we've brought with us for today. We will first do a short deep dive for the different components of the SAP Integration Suite, because as the name states, it is a suite rather than a single tool itself. Provide an overview of the capabilities and their features, and then what different accelerators you can make use of in order to increase, let's say, the speed or accelerate your PO migration or the migration itself towards SAP Integration Suite, and also new projects. Then we will also provide you a few important points related to best practices on the Integration Suite. So what you should be aware of, what you should take care of in order to make sure that you have a smooth operation and also a development that follows certain guidelines and frameworks. Then I will also show you a few standard development tasks and operation workflows. So how you have to imagine this works on the Integration Suite, because in the last session we also received a question of how this might look like. So we also integrated this into our presentation today to have this covered as well. And last but not least, we will give you a short impression of what a PO migration project is all about, what topics you can expect, kind of estimate already the effort that comes with it, but also, of course, the importance. And then at the last, we also will show you what we can offer to you to support you in such projects, or maybe even at the stage just thinking about it, not yet knowing how to, and just talking about it. Right. Then let's move on to a short recap, talking about Integration Suite itself. If you have different landscapes within your company, whether it be multi-cloud environments, hybrid cloud environments, or still also on-premise systems, which is very common and usual, you kind of always face the problem and challenge to integrate those systems, not only on a system layer itself, so on the technical layer, but also on the application and process layer in terms of having end-to-end processes without your users knowing or recognizing that there are different systems interacting with each other behind. Yeah? So your overall goal in most cases for integration is to provide your business users, your technical users, depending on what you're focusing on, a seamless experience, and also thus coming with a clear and structured data strategy so that you have consistent data within the different systems that is up to date, even on a real-time state. Yeah? That is also what is most important for the integrations today, because you try to also shift away from the batch operations where you had to wait for an overnight job that needs to run, rather than going to something happens in one system, is being pushed or spread to other systems, because maybe they already have the feature to subscribe towards your broker of that system that pushes this data towards the other systems, or different mechanisms in place that provide information, hey, there was a change, please, other systems maybe take the data you need, kind of a notification approach. So, and now if you think of trying to achieve this, and I'm sure that every one of you in any case kind of faced that already, that maybe you want to know how you actually can do this. And in this case, the integration suite is where it comes into its key role or place, because the problem is not only the integration itself, but also the management, the governance, the operation of the systems and the different integrations, letting you know what systems are being connected to each other, how they are being connected, how they are being secured, what different protocols are being used, and so on and so forth. So there's a quite huge amount of effort behind to keep such a system running. And this is where the strength of Integration Suite is, because it provides you the central point of access in that sense, to have everything at one place, develop everything at one place, have all your monitoring and security aspects in hand. Yeah? So that's the strength of the Integration Suite as an integration platform as a service. So that's the next thing. You don't have to cope with all the hardware behind it. So, and thus, coming to the Integration Suite features itself, I think many of you already know this SAP slide, actually, this figure, but it is a very, very good comprehension or summary of what the Integration Suite is capable of. Because, as it says, you can integrate everything, accelerate connectivity, and connect everyone by its different features it is offering, which are those in the middle. Yeah, so you have all tools necessary for application integration. Then also very important API management. And as well, the, as I've mentioned, central place to store your security, tokens, certificates, and so on and so forth. Also having your mappings in place so that you have the proper message conversions from one system to another. This, of course, on a B2B scale and level, with the necessary regulatory compliance, and also with guided integration practice. And what we will see on the next slide, also with the necessary accelerators to help you building this without you having to actually do it from scratch, but maybe being able to simply reuse something that is already there. And last but not least, as I've already stated, event-driven architecture support that might lead or makes necessary for you to rethink how you did integration before. Because as mentioned right now or today, nowadays, it's usual and common to have all of that on a real-time scale. that as soon as something happens, this is being pushed or broadcasted to all the subscribers of that system who need specific information from there and must be always up to date, rather than having it on batch jobs or loads in that sense. So, and as I've mentioned regarding the accelerators, so now you have all tools available that you need to accomplish what you want to achieve for a modernized integration landscape. But how can you get your projects, integration projects, much faster or finished faster? And therefore you have the pillars on the left and the right side, as highlighted on the slide, which is you have pre-built integrations. This is also where Thorsten will talk about in a few minutes, and where I also will give you a short overview of the Business Accelerator Hub, because all of these pre-built contents are on the Business Accelerator Hub. Then you have the different connectors available for SAP, but also an extensive non-SAP landscape. So I'm probably sure, or in general, those systems which you are using most commonly will be available as a connector on the Integration Suite. Then you have everything you need for also countries' e-government content. So regulatory or regulated content by law, which is also being supported directly by SAP, and thus shifting the also responsibility away, so that SAP needs to make sure that everything works, rather than you having to cope with that with custom solutions or anything like that. And just to mention on the side, more and more AI assistant integration features coming in, such as a suggestion for a first modeling of your iFlow within the Integration Suite, based on your description and input you provide. So bringing all the LLM and AI agent features into Integration Suite. And most importantly, also industry B2B standards, for example, with the trading partner management. So, and having all that at your hand, we will come to the details, no worries, allows you to connect everything and everyone, which is the outer circle of this figure. So you can connect on the technical level to data hubs, to event streams, to third-party apps or software as a service services, or even on a end-user scale or developer perspective, provide the necessary API endpoints and entities. So now we've talked about the big picture, what Integration Suite is offering you. Now coming to the precise components of that, which is this figure. Because if you subscribe to Integration Suite, it will come with the Integration Suite itself, with API management, with open connectors and the Edge Integration Cell. However, careful, Edge Integration Cell is a separate subscription, which you need to buy, as well as the Advanced Event Mesh, because those two are, it depends how you see it, of course, on your perspective in which area you are working, more special cases. However, the Advanced Event Mesh is definitely something you should directly consider with subscribing to, because this is something you will definitely need as soon as you will have more and more integrations happening, or even if you want to provide certain data interfaces or APIs to partners, external developers, and so on and so forth. But we'll come to that. Let's talk about the different components step by step. So Integration Suite, this is mostly where your overall logic happens. In most cases, if you have system-to-system integrations, in terms of more the technical part, where you develop logic to have specific parts running in terms of you want to automate certain things that in system A, for example, an object is being created which should be replicated to another system, and thus there a object creation with the data that has been entered in system A also in system B. Yeah, not kind of this front-end part where you provide an API and can maybe consume certain data and integrate it into your UI5 or UI5 app or Fiori app. So more the technical part with a lot of features to provide the necessary logic steps within your integration. So if there needs to be some transformations, if then maybe multiple systems must be read from certain cloud or on-premise environments. Yeah, so let's say the more complex part. Now, the next step would be that if you want to now publish maybe your endpoint to, as mentioned, partners or external developers, you have API management around it and can navigate through API management to your integration suite development. Why? Because we have just talked about the technical part, system-to-system connections and integrations. However, as soon as it comes to you want to secure your API endpoint or interface with a user login or an app registration, or maybe want to whitelist certain IPs, so IP whitelisting, include spike arrests for avoiding attacks, for example, that your endpoint is directly being shut down as there are too many requests coming in. Also quotas, so that certain users have certain quotas based on their subscription or any other situation. Content-based message validation or also structured-based message validation, all of that is within API management and is something that you would have to do manually in Integration Suite in your iFlows, and thus making it unnecessary because you then work with the policies which you place either before or after your iFlow or overall integration flow. So that's why you have those different connections with the arrows in between, because of course you can use the Integration Suite standalone, you don't have to use API management for it. The same accounts for API management as well, or you use both in combination. So that's why you have those different and many connections in order to show you that you have those different options available. Now, Open Connectors is there to provide you additional connectivity features or also adapters, so that you even maybe can create your own adapters, and which also becomes relevant for DataSphere and BDC, maybe, not sure. However, for DataSphere, definitely, because there you can also use Open Connectors to connect to hyperscaler services such or other systems like HubSpot and so on and so forth. Yeah, so this provides you additional connectivity, also with the option to build your own adapters. Right, so, but all of that is then, let's say, point to point, more or less. Yeah, so API management, maybe also regarding polling or requesting certain information. Now, when it comes to you have multiple systems having to work together or needing the information that something has happened, quite soon needs a central event hub, kind of, that you can manage all the messages that are being sent and also have the assurance, for example, that this message is actually being sent. If not, that you always have the option to re-send this message, kind of the event as an event broker in between, that you can monitor if everything is working, everything is available from a system perspective and the event notification subscription perspective. Of course, regarding monitoring, security, operation, transport management, and so on and so forth. This is all included within API management and Integration Suite. But for event messaging, specifically, you have advanced event mesh to take care of the management and the monitoring. Right? And that's why you have then, in most cases, instead of the point-to-point integrations, move over to the part where you place advanced event mesh in between. So all the arrows, basically, which are not necessary in between your source system, target system, and going through the API and Integration Suite modules will then be reshifted, so to say, to your advanced event mesh. And then from there on, you will have the central communication and broker that will be pushed to your integration developments. Last part is the Edge integration cell, which is specifically for on-premise use cases, in terms of you are not allowed to send the data over into any cloud systems due to legal requirements, or also security rule sets of your company whatsoever. So this is exactly then for the case you want to have all your integration on premise within your own hardware or infrastructure and managing this by yourself. And this is then in the end nothing else than having a runtime environment of the Integration Suite in or on your local system, so on premise. You still develop via the web UI, but you push down the developed components to your Edge integration cell runtime. Yeah, so basically when you press deploy, you can select whether you want to deploy on the Integration Suite in cloud or on your different on-premise integration cells. Yeah, and so that is then the whole picture. You see it's quite a lot of functionality features that comes with, and most importantly, it's not solely based on SAP or dependent on SAP being SAP systems that you can connect, but also very, very good for also non-SAP systems, which is actually also very interesting because SAP published certain usage data of the Integration Suite, and there at a certain point some use cases even are more often or more frequently being used between non-SAP systems rather than the SAP systems to SAP or non-SAP systems. Yeah, so you have a suite that provides all the necessary features and functionality for your overall integration strategy that you want to achieve. Right, and then we have certain things I've already mentioned, yes, but most importantly, features around, let's say, your integration developments, which is then the monitoring, security, out-of-the-box functionalities as mentioned, for example, for API management, for creating quotas that you simply have to add a policy and all the management of that and logic that is behind that is already for you available to use without having you to cope with it. Tracing and debugging happens in one place. You do your operations in one place. Of course, you have additional services available on the BTP, which I also will show you real quick, for also then monitoring, event handling, and operation. So basically transport management as well. So, and if we then come back to the SAP slide, which is also one of those, and you read through all those terms, which you can see here, especially in the middle, now you know how they interplay with each other and how they kind of, maybe in some cases, also depend on each other. Yeah, because this is an information that so far has not been that clear to you. Hopefully I was able to do so. And if you want to read through all those information I just given you in my, not directly in the slides, but via my tone line or line of speech, we have a paper executive summary that I've written for you so that you can read through anytime. Feel free to register and you will receive the free download. One mention already here. Unfortunately, I still have to go through the final step of finalizing it. So if you now download it, you'll receive also a notification that I will send it then personally to you. However, please do so, because otherwise I can't send it to you because I don't know where to. Yeah, so feel free, and I'm happy to send it over to you. And now we've talked quite a lot about Integration Suite, big picture, components, capabilities, and features. And now we kind of shift to all the accelerators. You remember the nice circle with the inner components. This is what we were talking about. And now Thorsten will tell you something about the pillars on the side regarding accelerating, more specifically Business Accelerator Hub, your integration development.
Yeah, thank you, Warren. A couple of points that I'd like to highlight here. And for a global enterprise software company, it's always difficult to cover the full breadth of requirements that customers might have. So we're all also relying on partners to provide repeatable IP to enrich our portfolio. That might be localizations, extending SAP ISA business solutions with niche content, but also industry-specific content. And in the Business Accelerator Hub, we have a quite rich array of repeatable content that can be used both for customers that are moving to Integration Suite as a new solution, but also for customers that are moving from other solutions from the SAP product family to Integration Suite. So we do have the standard adapters, we have the prepackaged integration flows, but also specific packages like for cross-integration pipeline extension.
Nee, genau, weil hat ja die Slides nicht.
Value mappings and a rich set of scripts that we are providing, like reusable Ruby scripts. And as you can see, we made the math here, so it's above 4,400 APIs that we are offering here, and 3,800 prepackaged integrations. So highly recommended to use that to not only accelerate the speed of implementation, but also to have a robust integration that is being maintained in parts here as it comes to the APIs provided in the store. Yeah. Giving it back to Martin.
All right. Thank you very much. And just to give you a small overview of what you have at your fingertips already, because it's this content is free to have a look at. And once you use the Integration Suite, or better said, use it within your Integration Suite, it's also free of charge for you to use. And the best thing, even, you're also not being charged for messages that are being processed through those pre-built packages and content. Yeah, so as mentioned, you not only have the benefit of directly being able to use it, but also you are not being charged for it. So, and then let's come over to the Business Accelerator Hub to show you real quick. So now we need to switch onto my main screen. Can we duplicate real quick my... it's already perfect. So you can see my screen. Nice. And as you can see here, this is the Business Accelerator Hub. And there you have... Sorry? It's still the presentation. Yeah, okay. Technical issues. let's do it this way. Perfect. So this is the Business Accelerator Hub. Yeah, you had the link also in the slides. However, it's very simple, api.sap.com. And there you have the integrations tab. And within the integrations tab, you have the Discover part. And there you can already see all the different systems that can or already have content available for the integration suite to directly integrate with. Yeah, and also very interestingly, as mentioned, and in many cases important, governmental integrations, for example, here for Texas, Elster, or also for the different countries as well. This was just the example for Germany, but also different countries being present. Jira, Microsoft, Oracle. Yeah, so you see it's huge and extensive. So, and if, for example, you might be interested in, let's say, SuccessFactors and click onto it, then you see, okay, this is my source system, and I want to see if there's any content available to another system. Let's say, for example, S4. And you directly get to see the different integration packages available, which is, where's the number? Ah, okay, it's 14. So, and there you then have, for example, here, ERP or S4HANA integration with SuccessFactors Employee Central, Cost Center, Employee Data, Social Security Certificate, and so on and so forth. And this little component here shows you the different integration flows available. So some are of bigger content, let's say, the integration packages, some of less. So this one has 1 integration flow, for example. This one has 4. And in most cases, this is also the size you have. This one is even with build process automation integration. Yeah, so you can also, or let's say Integration Suite plays a very important role within the build process automation of SAP, so build process automation service. But I cannot unfortunately go onto that in detail because we don't have the time for. It's 1 hour only. So yes, maybe just to show you, let's see Employee Central. Let's go for employee data. And there you have the integration flow. And if you now, you already see you have an overview. What is this all about? You have the version, also the last modification date. This one is, let's say, a little bit older because it hasn't been updated since April 2023. However, that doesn't mean that it's not relevant or necessary anymore or any kind of that. It's just that the interfaces haven't changed. And so in that particular case, and thus a modification was not yet necessary. For the governmental parts, in most cases, you will definitely have frequent updates, of course. So, and now if you go onto the integration flow and click again, well, I have to log in. Okay, give me a second, sorry. There we go. So, and this is then the whole overview already as you see it also in Integration Suite. Yeah, so you see the different steps that are happening. If you double click, you also get all the configurations of those steps within the Integration Suite. Yeah, you also see the exchange properties, which is relevant for deploying this, and also what is step by step happening there, and also how it can be called, for example, in this case, which will be then your URL and then the push, for example, here. But this is an externalized variable, so this has also to be set by you when you download, configure, and deploy your content. So, and to help you with that, you have the documents, so the guides available to do so. Yeah, and so this means here you have a step-by-step part with all the prerequisites and so on and so forth to follow in order to directly be able to use your integration package. Yeah. So this is just the overview regarding the integration packages if you come from the Discover integrations system to system. Now, you can also directly search for packages. As you can see, we have 699 different ones. Integration flows are even more, 3,900. So these are exactly the figures that Thorsten has shown you. And what I also want to highlight is you also have different adapters. So additionally to those which are already being present within the integration suite and ready to use, you can also download additional adapters, which will definitely become relevant if you want to use certain pre-built packages, because they have the dependency to those adapters. In most cases, they are also included in the download. However, otherwise you will get notified via the deployment guide. And as you can see then here, you have IBM MQ adapter, Google BigQuery, Shopify, Slack. So yeah, different additional adapters that you can use. And do not forget, you also have open connectors, which is not listed here, but that has as well a very extensive amount of systems and adapters available. So, and then for the message mapping, for example, this is also very interesting. You have also for S/4HANA, for example, your material management mapping already available. Let's say you want to use that. And by using XSD, so schema definitions, you have all fields that come from S4 and can then be mapped towards, so this is S/4HANA public cloud, and this goes to batch change set. I would have to read through the details. However, as mentioned, you already have not only the integrations itself, but also the structured schema information available, and also things like script collections for Groovy Script. If you have special cases or want to use best practices, and they are already there for you to directly use rather than you having to develop them again. And this brings us also to the part what Thorsten said. It's not only about the technical part for the integration, but also streamlining your overall development and having best practices in place by just using those templates rather than doing it completely the other way or re-implementing the same that is already there. Yeah, so saves you effort and saves you cost, and keeps you aligned with the current standard on the market. So this was the Accelerator Hub. Yeah, so just to give you an impression, feel free to browse. As mentioned, it's free to use. I just had to log in because it requires one. But you all should have an S user or other SAP user, and thus you can directly start browsing. So let me get back to the presentation. So now coming to best practice advices, because you've now just have the overview of core components, the accelerators, and now the thing is, how can you make most of your integration developments that you also get away from those point-to-point pipelines, which you might already know and have in your mind regarding the methodology that you use for integration, towards a more standardized, generalized, reusable, and also a very important modularized set of integration content that you build up by yourself by adding it from the Accelerator Hub or developing additional things for yourself to just speed up your overall development speed, and also, as mentioned, having certain frameworks in set that you maybe just have to connect the dots and reuse your already built and available models. So, and those are the advices from our side, that whenever you start working and developing within the integration suite, that you make use of those or have those bullet points always in mind. Yeah. Start with parameterization. Yeah. Try to get away from rigid direct statements of URLs or parameters, variables that they are not static, but can be changed by simply having them at the beginning as a variable available, which is then being used throughout the whole integration process, and maybe can even be sent to the other integration flows and components via header or body, yeah, because you have all the options available, to avoid having to always do the same in different integration flows. Then the next thing that comes with, once you have parameterized, so let's say made your content more flexible, you can start externalizing these parameters and variables you're using, so that you have just one point at the beginning or at the when you try to deploy an iFlow, simply have to press configure. You get all the different parameters, so externalized parameters listed, and can enter the values that are necessary. And this is also the principle that is being used for this pre-built content and the guides, because they tell you what you have to enter, which and where, and kind of how it works together. However, in some cases, not that detailed. It's just you have this parameter available, please provide a value that needs to be this and this and that, or can be flexibly set to your wishes. So that makes also the very important difference for transporting your content from development to QA to the productive system. If you go through the 3-tier landscape, you can of course also go by 2-tier, so development and productive, depends on your requirements. So, and then once you have done that, you can start generalizing. Yeah. So, and with generalizing, always modularization comes with, meaning you don't have to copy and paste the same iFlow. You simply provide one iFlow that is capable of accepting from different sources, and maybe inside you have one single step that routes to different other iFlows or different logic within your iFlow, and thus allowing you to reuse this component and just maybe have to do minimal, and in the best case, just parameters to adjust so that this directly runs through without you having to do this again. Yeah? And then, of course, you start building up a pile of different iFlows, message mappings, value mappings between the systems. And thus, at a certain point, and I always recommend to do this from the beginning, need a naming convention. Meaning, your packages have their own numbers, your artifacts are clear in their numbers in terms of, you know, it is an iFlow directly by the ID. It has a number that is being counted upwards because you have multiple ones. Then maybe you have the context that they are being used. Because this then becomes again relevant for the monitoring and also the security part, to know which content of the security material, certificates, application keys, authorization, credentials, where they belong to, but also in the monitoring that you always know in which context, or better said, to find your iFlows directly in that monitoring section. And what I always recommend, especially if you have dependent iFlows, make use of maybe also a short numbering or schema that you know which iFlow depends on the other one is being called by which one. I can show you at the end real quick how this might look like, how we develop this, if we do this for customers or start building up development guidelines or anything like that. This is then if we have time, hopefully. So I need to speed up a little bit. Right, and then of course, always make use of templates. And this is already the example I've mentioned, but templates also in terms of what is available on the SAP Business Accelerator Hub. This should be always the first starting point before you do custom development. Yeah, and then things like security first design, versioning is very important. And then provide detailed error handling logging so that you don't always get a 500 error for your developers, but a precise description of what has happened and why, which means you also need to be aware of doing proper logging and exception handling. And last but not least, clear and self-explaining descriptions of what this particular component is doing. Yeah, because not everyone knows, especially if somebody new comes in, he somehow needs to have a reference. And this should be directly within the integration suite and not on any external documentation that you have to go maybe to Confluence and read through the documentation there. You have the opportunity to do this as a description directly within Integration Suite. So make use of those points. If you always have them in mind, also you directly get a proper and streamlined design already for your integration developments. So then real quick, coming to the point regarding operation and monitoring, because what I've just shown you was for development. However, now for operation monitoring, as mentioned before, of course, you can do all that within the integration suite, API management, advanced event mesh. However, if you want to have a very central place and also maybe already other services of the BTP running, then it might make sense to start using the SAP Cloud Application Lifecycle Management service to have all of that in one place, or better said, especially as soon as you have a 2-tier or 3-tier landscape of multiple integration suite instances, the SAP Cloud Transport Management service comes into play, because of course your developments need to shift properly from one tenant to another and being deployed there. Yeah. So development from the core around operation monitoring, and now, which we quite often face with customers, is do not forget your BTP governance and structure, because there, of course, different requirements, different designs possible, yes. But what it should never be like, I need now the integration suite, I now do everything necessary to get there, no matter what the current structure on the BTP is. Yeah, so have a clear global account structuring, sub-account structuring, because the good thing is, but which could also be bad for you, is that the BTP provides you all the flexibility in that sense. So you can have separated everything within one single sub-account, or in separated sub-account, sorry, or you put everything into one sub-account. As mentioned, both are valid. There's no right or wrong. It always depends on your requirements and where you want to head to make the decision how it should be, and then follow that decision. Right, and the last part for now coming to the part you want to shift to the integration suite, and especially for the IPO migration, we have a very extensive framework or project backlog, I would call it, in a structured way, available for all different needs related to not only migrating from PIPO, but also shifting towards integration suite, doing new developments, because the overall approach, maybe even on a strategic level, not already on the technical part, is basically the same. And so therefore we started building up those different building blocks so that we, for every single project, can directly say we need this package, that module, and in combination with the other package to accomplish that. Because not everything, of course, is always covered within the projects. As mentioned, we can start at the beginning with the big overview of what systems are available and what integration strategy you want to have, or you have a single use case, then of course it doesn't make sense to go by the strategy approach, but just use the necessary parts to accomplish the goal for the use case. So 4 phases, 18 working packages, 48 modules, and 170 around tasks, single tasks, within this project framework, which is based on the Integration Solution Advisory method, so ISAM. And of course, we use all the templates of it, and we also have additional documentation and checklists available for those different tasks, because this just boosts our own project delivery time and also assures you having always a very proper and detailed documentation of everything we've done and will do. So, and for those who have been with us the last time, this is exactly how the different topics and tasks for migrations, new developments, or shifts towards Integration Suite are included. Yeah, so on a strategic level, integration strategy assessment phase of the ISAM, we have all the topics and tasks related to landscape analysis, integration analysis, the migration assessment, which comes especially for the PIPO migrations onto the Integration Suite, where Thorsten will quickly talk some details about. And then also architectural and architecture design decisions. Yeah, so as you can see, everything on a strategic level, yeah, regarding what security policies do you want to follow, what protocols should be used for integration, which old ones maybe should be modernized or being completely replaced. Yeah, so strategic level. Then second phase is really then the integration platform design. Yeah, so everything related development. Third phase is then starting. You've developed something and now want to bring it into daily business in that sense. So regarding monitoring, operations, transport management, quality, testing, automations, guidelines. Yeah. And then what is most important to us, we want to empower you so that you can do this by yourself once you maybe did it 1 or 2 times, maybe 3 times, depends on the situation, but that you have all that in mind, and we empower you to that in the end are self-capable of doing this. Yeah, so it's not our goal in that sense to just say, well, as soon as you need integration, come to us, we do it. Of course, we would all love it to do it this way, but at a certain point, this becomes inefficient and also just leads to frustration on your side. So that's why and this is also according to the SAP strategy, why we are partnering also in this way, wants to achieve that you have the level 5 of the BTP running. So as an excellence center or center of excellence available within your company that can cope with that. So coming to the migration assessment, Thorsten will talk about, because this is very important to mention, and is one essential step that we, from our approach, build upon all other different steps that come after it. Yeah, so depending on what is being said there, we evaluate and place it into a roadmap, so to say, for your PIPO migration.
Yeah, thank you, Marvin. When talking to customers, I understand that they are quite happy with the legacy products. So PI and PO are products where the customers are knocking on our doors waiting to move to the cloud. So as we made the decision to move on from PIPO, we also have to provide some rationale why to move. And here we are in a good position as we have collected a lot of experience already. We have used time to build some tooling around that. that we can provide. And then here I'd like to highlight that we do have a landing page on sap.com.
Sehr gut.
Post the link to the chat, where we have some of the customer examples that did the move to Integration Suite and that are highlighting what kinds of value they derive from that. So it's not always only on reducing cost or retiring technical debt. It's the additional opportunity, the additional value that you get from Integration Suite in cloud. That can be the API first approach, that can be the eventing, that can also be the name foundation for AI. But with the tooling that we are providing for the assessment, we can look into what is currently there and how difficult it is to move this. Maybe if we move to the next slide, that becomes a bit clearer. So looking into the PO, we create a report that is highlighting what is ready to move, and it's pretty close to the standard, where is adjustment required, and where do we have to look into based on the complexity. So there's a detailed reporting, as we see on the next slide. And we have just introduced as a new feature of the tool this year, that it also gives you a good indication of where the innovation of the integrations is bringing additional value to you as a customer. And here the partners come into play to ensure that we have end-to-end consistent offering, from assessing the current situation, identifying the best value approach for the customer to move to the cloud, and then to actually deliver. And here, experience methodology really plays a big role. And for us, it was important to work with partners that are not only bringing the certifications, but also the expertise and the ability to execute on the projects, and that have the willingness to work with the partners on these sort of projects. And, yeah, with that, I would like to hand back to Martin, being conscious of the time. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, and that brings us to the last part regarding your journey towards SAP Integration Suite, but also not only directly within that, also not only within the API management itself or single components, but really having the big picture and the big, let's say, package for you that also is related to your BTP. Yeah, so enabling you, first of all, in your BTP structure, roles, security, and depending on your organizational structure or requirements for capsulation, in terms of that only certain teams should have access to certain things. All of that is something we support our customers since the beginning of, let's say, the move towards the cloud from the SAP side. So we started with the first offerings that SAP had within the cloud under different names. I'm not sure if every one of you is aware of all the names still, because there have been quite a lot. So we are together with you trying to bring you up onto this journey and really make you ready for the future for all terms related to your BTP developments, your clean core strategy with S4 moves that is happening, and to have the proper governance and framework ready for you to directly focus on your pain points and problems, and not on, let's say, structural issues, problems with using the BTP or the services itself. Yeah, so for all of that, we provide governance support. We provide development guidelines that we develop based on your requirements, implementations. So even if you have custom integrations, we also do this with or together with us. Yeah, so if you have any requirements in terms of doing this, we are there also doing development work, so not only as a strategic partner in that sense, but in order to be capable of doing that, of course, we know all the inherence of those components, and thus assuring the quality of the guidelines, frameworks we provide. If you have connectivity issues, namely Cloud Connector, or also data provisioning agent in other cases, now, for example, related to business, so BI services, all of that is also our part. And with that, it's not only the customization of the BTP itself, but also if you have point-to-point integrations within SAP to non-SAP, we also support in the system configuration and preparation to make that possible. And of course, with that, go live, we also support you with that. We have our own support team as well for after the project. Yeah, so whole package from our side. And as we are 1 minute over the time, I would like to thank you very much for attending today's session. Feel free to reach out to Thorsten and me via LinkedIn, or also directly to the business addresses of ours. And also do not forget, if you're interested in certain further information related to Integration Suite, you can find the download here. Thank you very much, and see you in our next session, expert session, hopefully on next week.